I figured it out. Hold on. Okay, when the show goes live, it turned on the other mic. I had two mics on at once. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Kara Lesson, with Dr. Sasha Alex Lesson. And today we are going to bring on back again Dan Cooper. We've had Dan on a number of times. And you can find out more about Dan at aquarianradio.com. We have a bio and a lot of the links to the previous episodes we've done with Dan. But today, excuse me, we're going to cover some different things. I know you're all aware that Haim Eshed, who is the Israeli general, a former head of Israeli space program, space agency for like 30 years, and he announced that Trump was going to disclose about the alien presence, and they said no way. So, Dan, welcome to our show, and let's launch into that.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
We're going to break this down. Pull up the article.
Yeah, just ask me questions from the article.
Yeah. So
well, his quotes, ask me to interpret his quotes.
Okay, 1 second. Let me pull up the article.
So it's filling out the lines, not just reading between them.
First off, he was in charge of the Israeli secret space program for 30 years. And the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate is now disclosing. This is disclosure. This is authorized disclosure. I'm not authorized. I'm not authorized to disclose. I don't work with the ICC. I don't work for them, and I don't like them. He worked for the ICC for 30 years, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. They rule this planet, and many others, actually. And they are disclosing, they're performing disclosure by having him speak out. They're letting him do the disclosure. Now, so you have to ask yourself, why are they having Israel disclose this information? That's a very important question. Why Israel? And you want the answer, of course, and that is that ICC is telling you is that Nazis are no longer in control of the ICC. At one time they were, but they are no longer in control. Many testifiers or whistleblowers are saying, the Nazis are in charge, the Nazis are in charge. No, it's not true. It's just not true. And this is the ICC coming out telling you it's not true. They're also it's also very interesting to note that there's another reason that they're having Israel do the preliminary disclosures is because they're trying to explain to the Arab world just that Israel is part of the ICC. They're inside the program, and the Arab countries, the OPEC countries, the 8 OPEC countries, are not. And the ICC has been telling the Arabs Israel is in the program and they can't be touched, and the Arab community never believed it, and now they're finding out that the ICC is telling the Arabs that's true, that you can't touch Israel. Get it?
How did they get in the inside and the Arabs didn't? What was the politics behind that?
We're partners with the U.S.
Right, but I want to hear it from Dan.
No, why? Israel. The Nazis they wanted to get rid of all of the Jews, and this wasn't allowed for various reasons. It has a lot to do with in the beginning of the secret space program, 57 through the very beginning, from 57 on. Once they were able to time travel, and like some testifiers have told you, once you have warp drive, you have time travel capability, and we've had time travel capability since I guess 65. And once you have that ability, you find out right away that it's highly regulated, and you're allowed to go back. One of the things you're allowed to do is you're allowed to go back in time to verify certain historical events. And, of course, the Vatican was very curious as to the reality and existence of Jesus Christ, and so we went back and we verified the existence of Jesus Christ, and we verified the fact that he was an alien, probably a blue spirit. I've never been told what alien he is, but he was definitely alien, and that he had been to many other planets preaching the same thing. And they did the same thing with Muhammad, the prophet. They went back and looked in the, and checked the historical records to find out just how authentic these people and their teachings were, and what were the original teachings. And that's why the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate had decided to use the Vatican priest to go forward in time. We have a Vatican monastery that's I don't know how far it's forward in time. I've been told 100 years, but it's probably much longer than that, much further out. They probably have different monasteries further out in time in order to monitor the timeline, because remember, we made the error of changing time, and then we're responsible for putting it back to its normal timeline by nudging it back, and each nudge has to be evaluated by that group of Vatican monks. But that's why the ICC chose Vatican monks, because they went back in time and they verified the existence of Jesus Christ. They verified the existence of Muhammad, and they just weren't that impressed with the Muhammad legacy, I guess. They were more impressed with the Jesus Christ because he was an alien. And
right. They haven't revealed which alien species, and we've had many shows on which alien was Jesus. Was he an Anunnaki? Is one of our Glenn Bogue is a theory about.
Right. So the Nazis were told by the Super Federation, which is the Galactic Federation. He's actually improperly classified the specific group of aliens that are in charge of our galaxy. But he calls it the Galactic Federation probably because it's easier to understand it that way. We've been calling it the Super Federation. But anyway, the Super Federation had explained to the Nazis they can't destroy Israel or the Jews. They weren't allowed to. That was actually part of the agreement that the Nazis made with the Galactic Federation, Super Federation. That's one of the agreements they made, that they wouldn't destroy Israel and is a protected nation, and Jews are protected. And that's being passed on. That was told to the Arab world, but they didn't believe it. So now the ICC is coming out doing disclosure through Israel and the Jews for a reason.
Well, that makes sense. So they were. Do you have a question? You have a question on your face, Sasha. So this goes back. Okay, so we had Hitler came in and did his thing, and he killed millions of Jews. What was that about? Why was he allowed to get away with that shit?
You talking about the Nazis?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the Nazi extermination, killing 6 million Jews.
Well,
that was all before. That was all before the contact and agreements were made with the Nazis and the Super Federation of controlling 61 species that control the galaxy. They made agreements with them. The Nazis did. But before that, the reason that they had killed the 6 million Jews is because, and this was explained to me by my commanding officers, my colonel and lieutenant colonel, who were both Nazis, and they had explained to me that the reason that was because after World War I, there was a tribute that was owed, the treaty between Germany and the Allies, England and the United States and France in World War I. The treaty required a tribute be paid. I forgot what it was called. What's it called, Sasha?
Reparations,
right. So there was a reparation demand, and they had to pay that on a yearly basis, and they put the Jews in charge, the Jewish bankers in charge of collecting the money. And so what happened was, and the Nazis said that they lost 33% of their population to starvation because of the reparations, and they calculated that they were going to lose 80% of the population if they didn't do something about it. So they said that basically the Jews drew first blood, which they did. They killed millions of Germans. Before the Germans stood up and said, no more. We're done with that. And then they wanted justice. They wanted justice. They went after the people who killed millions of their people. They went after the people who did that. As far as the Germans were concerned, they were merely administering justice. But at one point, when they made agreements with the aliens said, well, no, you can't do that. Those are protected people. You got to stop doing that.
Okay, wait, I'm confused. Okay, because we have our history that we're taught in school. So you're saying that the the Jews, were these Israel wasn't founded until what year? 47? So it was after World War II.
End of World War I. The reparations, the agreement that Germans made in the surrender was that they would pay reparations. And the reparation costs were collected by the Jewish community and the Jewish bankers. Those are the ones who collected the reparations. And so the German government went to them and said, don't do that. You're starving millions of our people. And they said, well, too bad. You lost the war and you got to pay, and this is how you got to pay. You're going to die. And that's when the Nazis came in power. That one of the promises they made to their people is that they would enact justice. They would get justice for the millions of Germans that were killed by the Jews. They would get justice by killing millions of Jews, by exterminating the Jews. Actually, is what they promised their people. Justice. And it's true.
Okay. Oh, I don't have that history. You'll have to send me the link to that, because I don't know. I wasn't.
This is what was told to me by the my commanding officers, the two Nazi commanding officers. Okay. Now, I verified that by looking it up in history, and it is verified. It is true. They starved 35% of the population of Germany to death in the collection of reparations.
So let's go forward in time, because I don't want to be anti-Semitic here, because I don't have that verified. So let's go forward.
Oh, no, you don't understand. I'm giving you history. That's not the way it is today. Things are different today. What I'm telling you is a protected nation. It's protected by the Galactic Federation.
Okay. And so let's go into that part. So I'm looking at the article, and the article says that this is a retired Israeli general and space security chief, Professor Haim Eshed. And he said that the
Eshed.
Haim
Eshed.
Okay. He said that the extraterrestrials have been in contact with the governments of the United States and Israel for years. So is this the Eisenhower thing, or is it going back?
Well, no. The Eisenhower administration surrendered to the Nazis in 1952. There was the ceasefire in 52, and then the formal surrender treaty was in 57. And then part of the agreement in 57 was that all elections would be rigged. That was one of the agreements that Eisenhower made with the Nazis in the surrender in 1957, that all American elections would be rigged from that day on.
Okay. So tell me behind let's stop. That's a good big word, rigged. What does that mean? Which are they backing one party over the other? How do they choose whoever
they choose politicians that will do whatever they're told. If you take your orders directly, from certain specific members of the ICC committee, and if you don't follow them, they actually test you many years before you actually get into office. And so that's they test you for many years before you get into office, and to see if you follow orders. And if you follow orders, then they will make sure that you win the election, whatever election they want to rig. If they prefer the Democratic person that's running because that person is more subservient to their orders, then that's the person they put in.
Well, if you look at like Clinton, it seems they recruited him young, and Obama, he came out of nowhere. Clinton nobody knows really like his parentage. I can say his mother, not his father. So it seems like they, I guess they are working with some political families like the Bushes, the Kennedys.
Yes.
But then some of them I guess they're all related by blood somehow. If you take their ancestry and go back, and you can see that they all go back to Charlemagne, and all the presidents except for one or two are related to each other. So somehow they're going into this lineage, and they're seeing people, which we don't know that selection process. But I guess they have to pass some kind of loyalty test, or that they're easily manipulated.
But it's a 10-year vetting process. They vet them for 10 years before they allow them to take any significant positions of political power in the United States. They're vetted, and the vetting process is they keep testing them to see if they're going to follow orders.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 10 years, they vetted. The problem with Hillary is that she had made it adamantly clear that she was going to do disclosure, and once they do that, then that's it. They're done.
And this article says that Trump said he was going to do disclosure, And now
and
he's
done. Doing that too, and then now he's done. Everybody that does that gets removed, just like Reagan. Remember?
Yeah,
Reagan was the one that had me teach China how to do business because that was his way of rebelling against the ICC. There was actually 3 people involved in that one. That was Nixon, Reagan, and Kissinger who came up with that plan. But they're attacking the ICC. They're directly attacking the ICC by promoting Russia and China. That was decided by the White Hats. Reagan was a White Hat. He was one of the White Hats. But as soon as he did that, they shot him.
Right. And then Kennedy, what's his story? Why did they shoot him? He was going to reveal the ET president.
Same thing. Even if they're vetted for 10 years, at one point, once they find out, once they become president, they get actually right in. Once they find out, everybody decides to go against the ICC. They're not. What do you mean I don't have any power and I got to follow your orders? I'm the president. And, once they get into that position, then they flip. Everybody that gets into the position flips because they see what the ICC really is.
So
the ICC are upholding the agreements that we made to give 90% of the population into slavery, and they just don't go for it. They go, I'm not going for that. I'm not going to do that. Everybody flips. Trump, they vetted Trump for 10 years, and then when he got into power, he flipped. He's like, especially when he got read in, meaning find out that the secret space program's real, aliens are real, there's a super federation of aliens. You got to understand, when you say super federation, you're talking about 60 alien species that are in charge of thousands of other alien species. This isn't just one species.
Well, let me ask you something then. So they came down. The story is they came down and negotiated with Ike like he had some kind of power, to do something about stopping nuclear weapons or
no. They negotiated with the Nazis, and then the Nazis won the war. And Eisenhower surrendered to the Nazis, and there's a surrender treaty in 1957. We surrendered.
Okay, so what was all the contact? I'm going back in time to 54, 52, 53. He had all this contact. They landed at Haim Air Force Base. Why were they contacting him at such a level?
That's because once you discover Warp 1, and then you're allowed to be contacted by aliens. And aliens. Anybody who has that capability you can now talk to them once we achieve that. And Nikola Tesla is the one that achieved Warp 1 in the 20s, and we had that until he sold it to the Nazis because they wouldn't. The key pieces of the technology Nikola Tesla wouldn't release until he got his $2 million fee, and the U.S. wouldn't give it to him, so the Nazis did. That's why they won the war, But we had Warp 1, and that's why they were starting to talk to.
So how did we have Warp? How did they know? How did the extraterrestrials know we had Warp 1? Did Tesla get a spacecraft out? I mean,
oh my God! You haven't seen the glass domes on the moon? The Chinese keep posting those photographs that they took in December of 2013. They took the photos. The Chinese took photos of the glass domes on the moon. Those are glass domes over craters that are 25 miles in diameter. 25-mile-an-hour glass domes. In other words, they had observatories that have been watching Earth for more than 250,000 years. They see everything.
So when did the glass domes arrive on the moon, and who put them there? And did they have warp drive technology?
They've been tested. The material's been tested out to be 250,000 years old. The Chinese recovered some of the glass and tested it, found out it was 250,000 years old. So those domes have been there for over 250,000 years.
Okay. But I'm going to the modern era, why they contacted Eisenhower, and you said because he had warp drive capability from Tesla. And how did they know that we had warp drive technology from Tesla? Did Tesla build a craft? Did the Nazis build it?
In 1929, the first Warp 1 ship was built, and it was patented. 1927. 1929 was when it first flew to the moon.
Who?
When it first flew to the moon was 1929.
Who did that?
Nikola Tesla and the Germans did, and then they brought that, and then they wanted the United States to surrender to them in 1936, and they gave a ride to 3 American officers to the moon and Mars in Hannibal 3, which is actually you have an actual drawing of it. McClandis actually shows the Hannibal 3 in a military building, showing other generals the technology. But that's the Hannibal 3. The bigger one is the Hannibal 3, and that was the one that they took the U.S. to the Nazis took the U.S. to Mars in 1936 in that ship.
Mm-hmm.
They also, in the Treaty of 52, in 52 at the beginning, not the Treaty of the Ceasefire, and at the ceasefire in 52, they gave those 3 ships to the United States to study in 52. So that we had that technology in 52. The United States had it because it was handed to us as part of the good faith towards negotiating a treaty in 52, the ceasefire in 52. They handed those 3 ships that McClandis drew for you to the United States, the Hannibal 1, the Hannibal 2, and the Hannibal 3, German ships, and they gave a bunch of German scientists to explain how they work. So in 1952, the United States had Warp 1.
Okay, so then they contacted Ike in like 54 for what reason?
The aliens, because once we have warp drive, then they want him to be they want the United States to be part of the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, part of the agreement with the Super Federation. They always want all of the powers in the world to agree to all of them to agree to tie into any agreements. To get on board on any of the agreements that were made. They didn't just accept the agreement from the Nazis, because the Nazis didn't actually really rule the world at that time. And there was a time we changed time at that time and flipped it back so it looked like the United States won. So that was a problem, and the ICC didn't want us to do that anymore. And we actually were charged to go back and fix it, nudge it back to the natural timeline.
Which is, what's the outcome in the natural timeline?
The global warming. The Nazis weren't really too concerned about taking care of this planet, and they abused it, and so that was naturally what had actually occurred. It was brought to the brink of extinction, and that naturally has to go on because that is the natural timeline.
So when was the extinction event?
Also, remember that all got put off. It was supposed to be 2014. But that got put off by the Spirit being showed up in December of 2014, and they stopped all that. So they were supposed to bring the planet. They were supposed to bring the planet to the brink of extinction, and then the aliens were going to come on and show up and say, "Well, you can come to our planets as long as you work as you normally do, like a slave." And then 90% of the population was supposed to leave. Then they were going to restore the planet. Restore it for the other 10% to repopulate. You remember, they're farming species. They're farming us as slaves. The Galactic Federation, they're not nice people.
What would have pushed us over the edge in 2014? We didn't seem to be that
The spirit beings put a barrier around our solar system. They also put a barrier around our planet, but they removed the one around our planet so that nobody can be removed. We can't be removed. The 90% that we're supposed to be delivered up can't be delivered up. So if you bring the planet to an extinction and we're here and we can't leave, then we're dead. So you've lost your crop. They didn't want to lose the crop, so they stopped the extinction event. They stopped doing that, and now they're in the process of reversing that trend towards global warming.
And then
in other words, they're going to release enough technology to where we can reverse it because we can't be delivered up. And they don't want to kill us. Right. They don't want us all to die because we're the crop. They spent 250,000 years developing us, and they want the crop now, but they can't get it. They don't want us to be dead either. So everything changed when the Spirit being showed up on December 14th, 2014.
So this article says that the extraterrestrials have been in contact with Israel for years. So we got the history of them contacting the United States. What was the story with their contact with Israel?
I imagine in the 80s. Because he was in charge of the program for 30 years, that would date back into the 80s. That would mean Israel was brought in the 80s.
Okay, so I'm going to go to paragraph 2. And it says that Donald Trump was on the verge of revealing this secret before the Galactic Federation asked him to remain silent as the aliens are worried that humanity is not ready to learn about their existence yet. What's that about? Why are they not ready?
Well, that's the story they're going to tell you, is that you're not ready yet, but neither were the Nazis.
Well, that's the general reporting. What does he mean by that?
So, that you're not ready to understand that you're a slave, or that these are highly advanced species and they farmed you. Yeah, most people aren't really ready for that. No, they're not really ready for that.
Are they ever going to tell us that? I mean, they could really just invite us to the Federation and never say, well, by the way,
they're going to lie to us. They're going to give us you got to get more advanced spiritually and before we're going to give you this information or this technology. But they're going to continue on with that story. They're going to continue on with the lie. Remember, these are the people who raised you to sell you as slaves. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to lie to you. Oh, you're not advanced spiritually enough to understand, which is a lie.
Mm-hmm. So
by the way, the Arabs are very spiritually advanced people. They just, for some reason, they were kind of nixed out of the equation. I don't know. I'd have to think on that. But they're very spiritually advanced. Far more than the Nazis.
Right. So that does make sense if it's spirituality. But they just said that humanity is not ready to learn about their existence. What do they fear, that we're going to all
humanity's not ready to learn that we were raised to be slaves, that we were created 250,000 years ago, genetically engineered over many thousands of years, specifically to serve as slaves. They're not ready for that. People aren't. They're saying you're not ready to hear that. You're not ready to hear that because you can't do anything about it, and if you try, you're not ready to understand that you're a slave.
They could say that aliens exist and not give them the backstory that you were raised as slaves.
Well, that's what they're.
That.
Yeah, they're not going to give you the backstory. They're just going to aliens exist, but they don't want to release the technology because they don't want you to go out and about and interfere with their properties. They own everything in the solar system, all of the planets, all of them. They own it all. They own all the moons and all the planets, and they don't want any civilians riding around in ships messing around on their properties.
Well, if they reveal their existence, that doesn't mean we get to go on the ships or get to do much more. We just know they exist.
Well, we are going to be. There are going to be tours. That I know for sure. I know what the NSA told me. We're going to get tours. You're going to get two-week tours, and that's it. That's all you're going to get. When the disclosure happens, and I know specifically, and by the way, the Ganesh beings, everybody thinks it's the tall whites that are going to be disclosed first to you. No, it's not. It's the Ganesh beings. I know because the NSA showed me the film of the 1965 film of a Ganesh commander on a ship, and that'll be the first film you'll see of the Ganesh beings. The Ganesh beings are the ones you're going to talk to first. Those are the ones you're going to meet first.
Do they look like elephants?
They have elephant heads. Yeah, but I can give you the detail of the video because it was shown to me. They're very charismatic. They're a very charismatic species. Everybody's going to love them. They're very charismatic, especially they're.
Why are they?
I didn't hear that. You're breaking up now. You broke up totally.
What makes them charismatic? You said they're very charismatic. What makes them
I
charismatic?
saw the video and you just fall in love with them right away. And they're very much like the Nordics, except even more charismatic. Mm-hmm. You just love them. It's just hard to explain unless you see one and he's talking to you. You wouldn't understand what I'm saying. But if you've experienced like I have, you immediately fall in love with them. That's why they're going to be the first species that humanity meets. Are the Ganesh.
What was the circumstances that you got to see this video, and how long?
Oh, the NSA, they were bringing me in. They were trying to bring me in as a physicist into the program, and so they wanted to show me. They wanted to reveal some of the. They wanted to disclose some of the stuff to me. They disclosed different things. That was one of the things that they had disclosed because they were trying to bring me in as a physicist. Remember, I'm one of the top physicists in the world. I'm the 5th person to ever discover the 6th and 7th forces independently, derive it by myself. It's extremely rare, and they want me in the program. And so they were showing me the film of the Ganesh, the first film that was produced for disclosure purposes. All of these films were produced for disclosure purposes in the future. From 1965 on, they took originally all the black and white 16 millimeter films. They showed you there were two black and white 16 millimeter cameras,
right,
and on the ship, on the command deck, and then one of them panned over to the filmmaker of the other 16 millimeter film. So we got to see one of the film takers, the photographer who was using the 16 millimeter camera. So we got to see that person, and of course we got to see the Ganesh commander of that ship, and he said, okay, we're going to go over to Saturn. Boom, they were there. It was an instant. It was instantaneous from Earth. You could actually look out the portal, and they showed you out the portal. They zoomed the camera out of the portal, and you could see Earth, and then all of a sudden, zoom, and then there we were around orbiting Saturn.
So this
showed
is
you how fast
16
the
millimeter?
16 millimeter, black and white.
Film?
We're very fond of the
white.
black and white during the period. I don't know why they weren't using color in 65, but that's what they were using. All the original films are black and white 16 millimeter films, and they were all preserved for disclosure purposes. And they
so they have
one.
the Ganesha, and how tall are they? Are they the same size as the humans? Are they taller?
Well, just a little taller. This guy was about 6'3", but he's very broad, very beefy chest, but long arms. Yeah, long fingers and long arms. But the interesting thing is when you like Sasha, you look at someone, you look at their gestures speak to you, and and these gestures are very familiar to you, and even foreigners' gestures are very different from our Americans' gestures, and his gestures were very unique and very different, and very charismatic. He had these really cool ways of rolling his shoulders and way he moved his fingers. It was very unique. They weren't any kind of gestures that you normally see, but they were gestures, and they also communicate with their hands like Italians, And it was very charismatic and very unique. You could see these aren't normal gestures. You've never seen anyone gesture like that. And he spoke very good English.
And
American English, not England English. It was very American.
How did they explain that he spoke
He probably
English?
learned English from an American instructor.
And what about arms? Ganesh?
He only had two. This particular one only had two. He didn't have 4 or 6. I'm sure other people on his planet might have more, but he only had two.
Why are you calling him he?
Yeah, was he?
It was a male.
You think he was male?
He had a male's voice, and he looked very masculine. He had a very he looked like a Hercules. He looked like Hercules. I mean, he was really ripped.
Oh.
Really?
A male.
Was there one of them, or did they have more than one?
Only one. He said, I want to show you. He said, I want to show you my ship. They didn't show you any more of the crew, and he didn't discuss the crew. Wow. He was very proud of his ship, though. He said, I'm very proud of our ship. And he controlled the ship with his hand over a console, the way the Greys control their ships. He did it with hand. He'd move his hand, and the ship would move. Oh, and it was like a ball, and he wouldn't touch the ball. He would just move his hand over the ball, and then the ship would move.
What about the Vimanas? Were these the ones that came back in ancient times in the Vimanas?
Yeah, see, I don't know. I haven't studied all this like you have, Janet. I'm just telling you actual experiences that I had recently, real recent experiences, I never studied this stuff. This is all new to me. Not new to you because you and Sasha have been doing this for many, many years. So a lot. When you're asking me stuff I'm not aware of. That's
okay. Not being aware is a good answer too. Do you have a question, Josh?
Well, no, but all this makes total sense. The green men, the people that were in charge, that were communicating with the people that were communicating with Hitler's Nazis. It's all fitting together with the stuff we've been looking at.
Yeah. It's interesting that Haim's talking about a galactic federation. He didn't name how many species were in charge and how many species that they were in charge of throughout the galaxy. There are 3,000 spacefaring species in this galaxy, We communicate and trade with the United States communicates and trades with 900 of them, and there are supposed to be 60 or 61 species that are part of the Galactic Federation. I only know of a few. There's supposed to be, the makeup's supposed to be 40 humanoid, one that's 6 inches tall, one humanoid species that's 45 feet tall, and then there's supposed to be, the other 20 are insectoid, aquatics, and reptilians. And that's the makeup. But I only know some. The L are supposed to be a really interesting species. That's the green people you're talking about with the pointy ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the L. And they're supposed to be on the Galactic Federation. Let's see. So when I'm saying, well, you need to know about spaceships and space, he's talking about, well, you need to learn about these species. You have to learn about these species. And the cursory information, he's not talking about the cursory information you all have. He's saying you really need to know a lot about these people, the local bubble, and what humanoids are, the 52 solar systems in the local bubble. It's called the local bubble. That's our closest. We're in the local bubble, 52 solar systems.
Yeah.
And you need to learn about all those 52 species in each one of those solar systems. That's what he's saying. There's a lot you need to know first before these people are going to reveal them.
Know when they're blocking the information.
I know, isn't that crazy, right? We're not going to tell you, but you need to know first before we'll tell you. Really stupid, right? It's as stupid as it sounds. It's as abusive and cruel as it sounds. Yes.
So they going back to the article. Let's see. Let's see. He's an 87-year-old professor. He holds a doctorate in aeronautical engineering. He has supervised over 20 satellite launches. He received the Israeli Security Award 3 times. This is the Israeli Defense Minister.
The ICC is going to give you one of their own, and this is the very first person that they've ever given at such high rank for disclosure. This is the ICC doing real disclosure, and this is how they do it. They bring real people with real credentials forward. They're not going to bring you They're not going to bring you any of these other people that have been speaking out. Those aren't the people they're going to. If they're going to disclose, they're going to disclose with very high-ranking personnel like this person.
So
that's who's going to do the disclosure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Trump was going to reveal it, but the aliens thought it would be better to let people calm down first because they don't want to start mass hysteria. We're not hysterical. It's like I think we're totally prepared. We've been following science fiction.
We're hysterical about politics.
No, we're talking about alien.
They're going to become pretty hysterical when they find out that they've been farmed as slaves. I
don't think they have to say, by the way, you're farming. We're just talking about their existence, that they exist. But I think we've been prepared since the day the Earth stood still in 1951 that intelligent extraterrestrials exist. We have Spock.
But the agreements that they made, the agreements everybody made with the Galactic Federation was that they wouldn't release the technology for 100 years from now. And now that has something to do with they're always looking to see what happens if the technology is released and when. As far as the Vatican priest and 100 years ahead of us are looking at what happens if disclosure occurs. So they're always running the scenarios. They're always running analyses and scenarios, artificial intelligence scenarios as to what if, and it doesn't look good. So they keep saying 100 years from now, because the technology can be abused, and that's they're saying that it's going to be abused. But I don't. I wouldn't know. I'm just telling you what they said. I didn't say it.
But what happens is, Dan, you and a few other people have solved a lot of the equations that would allow the technology, and you publish papers and so forth. It's getting out there. It's not shush anymore. You've already begun the process.
Well, yeah, because I'm in a unique position. See, the orders from the Galactic Federation are to kill anybody, and we made agreements to kill anybody. And Bronco himself was responsible for killing thousands of American citizens. The TSA spooks, they were responsible for killing thousands of U.S. citizens. Anybody that discloses were supposed to be executed. That was the agreement. We agreed with the Galactic Federation. The United States made an agreement with them that they would kill anybody that would disclose the information or disclose the technology, and that was the agreement. Me, I can't be killed because I serve. That's the difference. I have an advantage, and when I found out I had that advantage, and plus I had the ability to recreate the technology, there's a very unique situation. So I'm forcing disclosure early because they can't kill me. They're not allowed to. See, that's very unique. And it's extremely unique to be a super soldier and a physicist who rediscovered the technology. That's very unique.
Right. So we're not talking about, this article is not talking about we're going to get any technology. It's just the existence of extraterrestrials. It's not going to reveal that we're farmed. It's not going to, it's just...
they're not saying they're going to release technology. The best you can hope for is they'll show you the aliens. You're breaking up, Janet, by the way. The best you can hope for is they'll show you the aliens, and they'll give you the tours. You know, one of the tour you have the Saturn bases, the Saturn. We have a specific 12-kilometer in diameter satellite over Saturn, and that's the space station where we do all the commercial agreements with the different aliens, the 900 alien species. That's where we negotiate with them. So you get to tour that. You're going to get to tour Ares Prime on Mars. You do get to go see the backside of the moon, and you get to tour the first Nazi space station, which is now the Lunar Operations Command, and you get to tour that. So you get to tour the different places in the solar system. They may take you to the local bubble. I don't know. But those are tours. They're already prearranged.
So we're going to get tours. I'm going to go back to the article, because I'm still unpacking the article, and then we go free-flow with conversation. There is an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here. So let's unpack that. What do you know about those two?
They call them 26 experiments, but they're actually 26 genetic engineering programs that evolve, meaning as they learn more, performing the genetic programs, genetically engineering us to be slaves. They call them experiments, but they're actually programs. They're actually 26 specific genetic engineering programs because they're genetically engineering the entire our entire surface of humanity to perform functions on other planets as slaves. And there are 26 separate programs, meaning there are 26 separate places that you're going to be going.
Right, because it doesn't say anything about 26. It just says they signed a contract.
Call them experiments, but they're not. They're 26 separate programs, all designed for 26 specific solar systems you'll be going to as slave.
Can you give us the top several kinds of workplaces that we're going to be getting? Because I realize we're slaves now, right now, entrapped in a economic system that hides the fact that we're slaves. So what are some of the other ones that they're
trying to acclimate you towards service on these other planets? All these planets are pristine planets. They're absolutely gorgeous, beautiful places, and the people that you'll serve under are very spiritual, and they're very nice. You know, they just don't see you as they see you more like a dog or a cat that can perform functions. They don't mean you. Just like you don't think badly of your dog, you love your dog. They're the same way. These are very beautiful planets. They're absolutely gorgeous planets. But you don't understand, we can't be brought there anymore because the outer barrier doesn't allow us to be removed. That's the difference. You're asking me what was, not what is.
So let's go back to the original. It says that they signed a contract with us, which the U.S. Who signed the original contract? Was that
the original contract was signed in 1957 by Eisenhower.
By Eisenhower.
And a number of corporate leaders at the time.
And the original experiments was that the Greys abducting humans? What was the original agreement back?
There was a papal.
Those programs, genetic engineering programs, began 250,000 years ago. They started 250,000.
What did they do in 57?
In 57, they just merely got the leaders of America to sign on. So, yeah, we agreed. We're going to go ahead and sign on to that program because the agreement is that 10% of you get to, what is it being called? It's called the escape civilization. What's it called? What do you call it when you leave and you go off on your own? The 10%.
Breakaway civilization.
The breakaway civilization. I said, well, only 10% are going to be breakaway, and they're going to repopulate for the next crop. And so they agreed to that because they're part. They were told they were going to be part of the 10%. Anybody that's read into the program, really into the program, and when you're actually into the basically one of the whistleblowers said that, well, if you don't have access to a ship, you're not in the program. That's basically the basic rule. If you don't have access to a ship with multiple warp capability, you're not in the program. You're out. You're not one of the 10%. The breakaway civilization is clearly the 10%.
Mhm.
And they're not here. Most of them are on other planets. They're just not here. None of the high technology is developed here, and all those people are not on this planet. They're on other planets. Right. They're serving on bases.
And we get that story from our super soldiers. But I'm going back to this original agreement with Ike about the original experiments. Is that in ufology? What the story is that the Anunnaki tall whites came in. They asked to stop the nukes. Ike said no. Then the Greys came down and they said the agreement was to get technology. And the Greys said, well, we'll give you technology if you let us abduct your people and do their experiments, which was the hybrid program. Is that accurate according to
No, because you see, these programs go back 250,000 years. There are no new programs. That program that the Greys are talking about goes back 250,000 years. The mere fact that we signed on to it and agreed to it in 57 doesn't mean it wasn't going on for 250,000 years. It had been going on for 250,000 years. See, the Greys' problem, and let's go over the Greys' problem. The Greys' problem is that they were into cloning, and then they transfer their soul. They live in a body that lasts 1,000 years, genetically engineered body, and then they transfer that soul into the next clone that lasts 1,000 years, and they can only do that 100 times. And the problem is that the entire species was doing this over millions of years, and eventually cloning, you always lose something when you clone. And over those million years, they were a dying species, and so they had to. That's what the 250,000 year program started. Was to also one of the programs was also to give them a new start, which was genetically engineered humans, but they had to genetically engineer us for 250,000 years before they started mixing our DNA with theirs in order to create a new species of Greys. That's what you're talking about. That's what you're asking about.
I'm just asking about the article because it's very vague. It says there is an agreement between the U.S. government, so it has to be in the last 240 years, and the aliens. And it doesn't say which alien species. And it says whatever X species, signed a contract with us. So I guess we're saying Eisenhower and the people back then, and then to do experiments here. So we don't know who they.
No. In 57, the government of the United States merely agreed to go along with those 250,000-year-old genetic programs. We merely agreed to go along to continue those programs, not to oppose, and not to disclose anything, not to give out, and not to disclose technology, not to disclose anything about aliens, and to kill anybody that tries.
Okay, so let's go to the next step. They, too, are researching and trying to understand the whole fabric of the universe, and they want us as helpers. So that's a very strange sentence.
One of the genetic engineering programs was to engineer us because they interjected us with ancient builder race DNA to have us invent for them because they're not very creative, and so they wanted to engineer a bunch of physicists who were very creative to to create newer technology.
So they
remember, they can't. Remember, these people can't beat the spirit beings because they haven't got higher technology than the spirit beings. So they genetically engineered us to do that. And at the point we got really close, the spirit being showed up and said, no, not going to happen. And they surrounded our solar system with a barrier so that just kind of stop our physicists from developing the technology to defeat the spirit beings, which is what the Galactic Federation was trying to do. That's one of the programs.
What do they mean by the whole fabric of the universe? What does that mean to you?
How does it all work? And
yes.
you have to be a very advanced physicist to be able to figure that out on your own. And that's why they engineered us to do that. That's how they were doing it. That's how because they couldn't do it. They couldn't develop the technology to defeat the spirit beings, so they engineered us to do that. That's what's going on, but that's what they mean by that fabric of the universe.
They're so far in advance of us that they came down to these little ignorant creatures that are just their farm animals and want us to help them.
No, we were engineered to be.
We
were engineered to be advanced physicists, and not everybody.
Okay.
There's only a few of us on the planet that have that capability, but we were genetically engineered over 250,000 years to become advanced physicists, to become advanced engineers. That's why they call us the next builder race. We are the next builder race.
So have they asked you to help them understand the fabric of the universe? You personally? Who are they seeking out to understand the fabric?
Yeah, they want me to develop the 8th force for them so that they could defeat the spirit beings, and I declined.
Okay.
Because remember, I independently derived the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th forces, and the Galactic Federation wants me to develop the 8th force for them so they could defeat the spirit beings, and I declined.
Okay. Well, Sasha, what do you understand about what is the fabric of the universe, the whole fabric of the universe? What's your understanding?
The way I regard things is that I feel there's fractals of all there is within my consciousness, and I'm within the fractal of every energy and particle in the universe, and all that I need to do is be as conscious as possible of the present, and it's all there for me. And I know this may not be where anyone else is, but it really works for me.
Yeah, these guys aren't so advanced. They just want the technology to defeat the spirit beings.
Yeah, and so the way I look at relationship is that even though you may think of them as superior or more inclusive in consciousness than the parts, it's like what the mountain says to the chipmunk: I'm big and you're little, and the chipmunk says, yeah, well, that's cool, but I'm little and you're big. So so when you're in relationship to supposedly superior beings, just like when you think you're in a relationship to your dog or cat, the reality is it goes two ways, and you're dependent for love and adoration from your cat and dog, just the way they are from you. That's how I look at things.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
thanks, Sasha.
Next sentence of this article. We're still unpacking the article. There's an underground base in the depths of Mars where their representatives are, and also are American astronauts. Okay, explain that.
That's Ares Prime. There are 5 colonies that are allowed. Remember, Mars is occupied by indigenous species. The reptilians are really in command of the 3 indigenous species: 1 insectoid, 1 humanoid, and 1 reptilian. The reptilians are in charge in Mars. They're the original species of Mars, the indigenous species. And we made agreements with them, and they only gave us 5 colonies. One of them he's talking about Ares Prime. And those colonies are all underground in the tunnels. I forgot what those tubes are called.
And that's the American base. He says it's American astronauts.
Yeah, well, he just uses astronauts so you understand. I mean, yeah, it's American personnel.
Right.
Mars Defense Force is what it's normally known as.
That's good.
Okay.
The ICC owns all of the colonies on Mars. We do a lot of manufacturing on Mars. All of our activities with the aliens are not performed on this planet. They're all performed on other planets. We do have aliens that are here for observatory reasons.
We have information that there are bases, including underwater,
that
are extraterrestrial bases. Yes.
Yes, the extraterrestrials are here. We have aquatics here. There are different species that are allowed to stay here for observation purposes and also for research because we have very unique ecostructure. And they're not here to do anything with humans. That those 26 genetic engineering programs have been going on for 250,000 years, and they continue to do that. They're not the ones that I'm talking about. The ones that are here on the planet are different aliens here just to study our ecosystem. You know, our animals, our insects, and you know, and the evolution of those things and stuff like that. The Venusians. Commander Thor and his fleet of 200 ships that are cloaked, they're here specifically to study humanity, quote-unquote, humanity's transition into the intergalactic community. So they're here. They know that this is the period of disclosure and humanity, the surface humanity is evolving into becoming a part of the intergalactic community, and they want to record all that. And so they're here. That's why we've allowed them to have 200 ships here. That's the Venusians. Commander Thor is still in charge, and that's what the NSA told me that the film "The Earth Stood Still," or was the Day the Earth Stood Still? Yeah, the Day the Earth Stood Still is an accurate account of when they came here and when we made the agreements with them to allow them to have 200 ships here.
Oh, that's Klaatu Barada Nixon. So that's Valiant Thor. That makes sense.
Valiant Thor, yes, Valiant Thor, the Venusian. I had some idiot ask me recently, "Oh, we're terraforming Venus." I said, "No, you're not." Who told you that? Oh my God, this is occupied. Terraforming Venus. Actually, terraforming is not allowed anywhere. It's prohibited.
So
it's not allowed.
That's Valiant Thor. If you rewatch the day, even the uniform that Michael Rennie is wearing is Valiant Thor's uniform, and he had worked the robot, and he said Klaatu Barada Nixon, which I never forgot since I saw it back in 1950, whatever it was, 60 or something. I saw it when I was a very little girl, and that stuck with me all those years. It was the most profound movie I ever saw, and I was like, this is reality. The other stuff is bullshit. Anyway, I want to go back.
Yeah, that's right. Of the period,
says, this next, I'm going to read this whole paragraph. It's not real long. If I had come up with what I'm saying today 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized, he concluded. Wherever I've gone with this in academia, they've said the man has lost his mind. Today, they're already talking differently. I have nothing to lose. I've received my degrees and awards. I'm respected in universities abroad, where the trend is also changing. So there's indications that we are, like I said earlier, we are able to accept the alien presence. I'm not talking about technology and all that other stuff, just that aliens exist. There's a lot of indications. We've had, 60 years of prep on this, all these sci-fi shows. I think we are ready. Go ahead, Sasha.
Well, it's not just that. It's the theft and murder and kidnapping, honey. A lot of people commit
right, yeah. And that's the thing is that we really have to go after the CIA for continually killing our American citizens. Anyone like me, a scientist, that don't have immunity get killed. You build a prototype of an over-immunity device, you're murdered, and they kill every single scientist that does it, every single one. They can't kill me. Anyway, what he's talking about is academia. What he's saying is that until the universities, and he's actually trying to get the universities in Israel to be the first universities to teach over unity, warp drive, and until those two things are actually taught in the university formally, he's basically saying no, not going to happen. Nobody's going to release anything until the universities start teaching the tech, and the tech's out there because it just got released by Trump. The Navy's Warp 1 ship, the Navy's mass reduction device, the Navy's superconductivity, room temperature superconductivity, the Navy's compact fusion generators. See, these are real technology, and what he's saying, until the universities start teaching this technology, you guys aren't nowhere. So it's the universities that have to change first. They have to start teaching this tech.
The trend is changing. He said the trend is changing, so they are more receptive.
Yeah. A lot of the engineers and physicists in the different universities are now saying, "Is this real? Is this real?" And what's really interesting is Israel actually has a step up over everybody, because they have someone who just came out of the program, who's going to the universities, telling the physicists and engineering departments, you need to get onto this right away. And so Israel's getting a step ahead of everybody else in the whole world. Like I go to universities and say, well, I want to teach this stuff, and they won't even call me back.
So then Eshed, I call it Eshed. How do you pronounce it? Anyway, he says that President Trump's creation of the U.S. Space Force could have something to do with this joint U.S.-Israeli Galactic Federation project on Mars. That's a big, he's saying this is like a project that is U.S.-Israeli Galactic, already on Mars, and that Trump is trying to, he created the Space Force to do something. What was the
Space Command was only created to funnel money into the secret space program. The actual entity in charge of our Earth Defense Force is the CIA. The CIA commands the Earth Defense Force, and a lot of those ships were shown to you by McClennis. McClennis drew the ships that comprise Earth's Defense Force. So those ships are already created. Those squadrons and squadrons of anti-gravity aircraft are already created. They're commanded by the CIA. Space Command is only created. They can continue to perpetuate the rocket ruse, and they continue to draw monies and funnel those monies over to the CIA. They are not going to be given any anti-gravity spaceships. They're not going to be allowed to build any. And SpaceX is definitely not going to be allowed to build any, because I was told by the NSA that Elon had grabbed all of the Russian rocket scientists, and the United States isn't about to give Russia any anti-gravity technology. So they're not going to let SpaceX build any anti-gravity spacecraft. They're not going to let Space Command build any anti-gravity spacecraft. We already have them all already built. They're already cloaked, and they already protect Earth. Earth Defense Force is commanded by the CIA.
The U.S. is not known to share their technologies, the advanced stuff, everything they share.
And that's why they're not giving any of it over to SpaceX, because they're all a bunch of Russian scientists. Kind of inept, very non-creative, don't have any creativity amongst any of them, and they're definitely not going to be handing any technology to those guys.
So the next paragraph says that Eshed was vague about how long the aliens have been working with humans and how long the Mars base was operational, but Trump might have created the Space Force to address a recent need for more human staff at the facility. And both the U.S. and Israel have discussed plans for missions to the moon within the next few years, but that could be a smoke screen for sending personnel to Mars, or perhaps the Galactic Federation wants its human partners to demonstrate they retain the courage, ingenuity, and technical prowess to land on a near celestial body before they bring more humans to the Mars base. What do you think of that paragraph? That was loaded.
I don't know. Pretty long. Once you ask me a specific question, it's a very long paragraph.
Okay. What they're saying here is they thought that this Space Force was addressing the need for more human personnel on Mars. It's like it's a fake thing.
Oh, no. They all the personnel on Mars are grown on Mars. All the scientists originally that were pulled into the program on Mars. The U.S. has been on Mars since 1936. The Nazis have been on Mars since 1929. And that base, Ares Prime, was the first base in 1929 that was put there. But all the personnel that were brought there, basically the great brain drain, all those scientists that they pulled out in the 50s and the 60s,
right,
they procreated on Mars. It's their kids that are running those operations, and they're not going to pull any personnel from here. They're not going to pull anybody from this world into the program except very special people like me. They're still doing the great brain drain. They still grab a few, but
Very, very few. And anybody that they need to...
This general is saying that they want us to show that we can land on the moon, and then the Galactic Federation, they want us to, it's like a test, land on the moon, and if you can land on the moon, you can still do it because it's been a long time since we did it last, then we're going to start taking more humans to the Mars base, because Mars apparently wants more people than they were able to procreate. They want
that's a recruitment promise, that's a recruitment promise. But the fact is that when you do get recruited into the program, you never come back. You get a death certificate. They act like you're dead, and then you leave.
Yeah, I met a woman.
You never get to come back. You don't get ever to come back.
She lost her husband to the Mars program. She was very upset.
Well, we have bases throughout the galaxy. So it's really strange to be talking about Mars when the United States has bases throughout the galaxy.
I understand.
It's really odd to be talking about Mars. You know, that was one of the first bases that, you know. And as far as that whole thing, well, if you can get to the moon, you know, meaning if you're a physicist and you're able to design and build a anti-gravity aircraft, you're welcome to the program. That's what they told me when I started. They said, you can do anti-gravity, you're welcome to the program. That's why I was welcome to the program. So I was invited because I did it, because I recreated anti-gravity. I recreated a anti-gravity spaceship. That's why I was invited. You don't get invited to the program until you can do that. It's a very rare accomplishment.
People to wash the dishes. I mean,
I thought anti-gravity was married to Pat Pending.
Oh. Oh, he's silly. Okay. Anyway,
nobody washes dishes. They have machines that do all that stuff.
Maybe they need more people to do the laundry.
It's mostly do personal grooming, and they're like pets. You know, machines do most of the work. They don't actually do physical work. They really want physicists. Remember, they mainly engineered us to be physicists and engineers, the builder race. That's what they want. They want the cream of those, the very best of those. And what Haim is telling you is that if you're a physicist and until you're able to redevelop anti-gravity and prove that you can do that, you're not invited. That's what he's saying. He's recruiting here. Another damn recruiter.
Well, this whole article might be because he wanted to sell his book, because the next paragraph says that he has written a book that provides further details about human interactions with aliens, titled The Universe Beyond the Horizon, Conversations with Professor Haim.
Of course he wants
to sell it. This is the ICC authorized disclosure. That book is the ICC's authorized disclosure. It's very significant disclosure. When it comes out, we can get it. And of course, I always want to make a pretty penny from it, just like TSA is the Space Academy, and they're recruiting. They get everybody else to pay for their recruitment efforts. They don't know that's what people are investing in is their recruitment efforts. So again, you're investing in, but it's true disclosure. His book is true disclosure. I don't know what they're going to reveal, and I'd love to interpret it for you when it comes out.
Cool.
And then he says that the professor said the book reveals how aliens played a role in preventing multiple nuclear apocalypses on Earth. What does he mean by that?
Yeah, anytime. Well, we fired off weapons, and Russians have fired off nuclear weapons, and they just simply take them out. And, you know, we actually have a photo of. We have a video of several of the nuclear weapons being taken out. This very accurate video of how it's done. They basically run around and remove the fissionable material with they beam out the fissionable material. It's very simple.
They show
you have warp
video.
capability and you can beam things out. When we've had transporters since 1901, Nikola Tesla developed the first transporters in 1901. We've had them since then. And so you have a warp one ship, you got transporters. It's easy to beam out fissionable materials. Just beam it right out. Oh, guess you can't blow that ship. You can't blow that one up. It doesn't have any atomic material on board anymore. Whoops. So it's really easy. The nuclear flow, I call it just like the rocket ruse. You have the nuclear weapons ruse. Nuclear weapons have always been a joke to to anybody with Warp 1 capability, which the United States has had since 52, right, 52.
Yeah, we had a rocket coming our way. We had the alert went off, and it said you have 15 minutes to live.
Real rocket. They just go up and they nullify it. It's really easy to nullify this stuff. When, like I told you, when you have Warp 1 capability and you have transporter capability, it's very easy to nullify a nuclear weapon. It's super easy.
Well, I'm saying that was a couple of years in January. Wasn't it January?
Yeah.
It was like
yeah. That happened. That happens all the time. That happens hundreds of times. People have shot off. My favorite recent event was North Korea. They shot off a whole bunch of them all at once. And they disappeared and dropped into the ocean with no nuclear material in them. And they had submarines out there to go, because they thought they were told that was what was going to happen. And they retrieved one of them, and it didn't have any nuclear material on board. They're like, what? It's really amazing. They spent so much time. They thought they were going to be real powerful with their nuclear weapons, and they fired them all off at once. And that was the one that went towards Hawaii, by the way. That was North Korea, and they just get nullified, defanged. It's real simple.
Well, they had a video. They pulled it since then, but I saw the video where something was coming down, and then something launched up. No, something else came from above. It was from above, like it was our secret space program. It was in 2018, January 13th, 2018. And so they had the video. It was an early whale watch or something, and they caught it on film. But we were sitting here just, it was early in the morning, and all of a sudden all of our phones went off, and it said, "This is not a drill. You have 15 minutes to live. Kiss your ass goodbye." So it was
The North Koreans were firing all kinds of stuff off back then. Yeah. Even Xi Jinping sat him down and said, "Don't do that. You don't understand what's going on." "Well, tell me." And he said, "He can't. You're not. I can't read you in. I'm not allowed to." Who was that North Korean? Who's the North Korean president? Anyway, Xi Jinping called him in and ordered him to appear, and he went in and he said, "Knock it off." Said, "How many of those things did you fire off and none of them blew up?" "Well, over 100. Yeah, well, don't you get it yet? Oh, good.
Yeah, what's his name, honey?
Kim Un.
Kim Un. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Kim Un.
Yeah.
So Xi Jinping called him in and said, "Stop! You don't get it. You fired off over 100 of those things. None of them went anywhere. Don't you get it yet? Don't you understand? Nuclear weapons are a joke. Don't you understand? We don't build them. Why don't you think we don't build them? Why is that?" He's telling Kim. "Why aren't we building them? Don't you get it?"
They take so let me see. What's the implication of that is that all this money for nuclear weapons is just going to other stuff.
Well, no. The North Koreans actually spend a lot of their money. You see, when you have a hostile person, you want them to spend their money on weapons that you can defeat. So you trick them into doing that. Which is what the aliens did to us. We were building all these nuclear weapons. They were a joke. And everyone, everybody knew that. Anybody in the alien world knew that nuclear weapons are a joke.
So then
because they want you to spend your money going nowhere, spin your wheels going nowhere. That's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
Any idiot that's stupid enough to build a nuclear weapon, who actually intends to fire it off, you deserve that. You deserve to be fooled because you're an idiot.
Dan, what's happening is that there's chains of contractors who are giving each other money, and it doesn't matter whether the weapon works in the end or not to these guys. They're just
that was Kim's first suspicion, but when he retrieved one of them, he found out that the material was gone, and it was Xi Jinping that had to explain it to him how it was gone. So.
Wow. Final line, they talk about the Pentagon releasing the information. What's that about? What are they releasing the videos of the UFO encounters? Multiple UFO encounters were
Oh, well, that's not. I'm not telling you. You're asking me something separate. You're going some different direction now. You're asking me about that reason.
This is the last line of the article that we were unpacking about the Israeli
They have
general.
no intention. The CIA just released 700 documents, and they're all garbage.
Okay.
Oh.
You know, you got to understand. Okay, let's go back to. I'll just give you one example. The Battle of Los Angeles, February 1942, when the Nazis had a ship that just stood over the harbor in Los Angeles for 2 days. Everybody took pictures of it. Every single person in Los Angeles. Hundreds of thousands of people took pictures of that, and they were all confiscated, every one of them. And that would have been one of the things the CIA should have been releasing, because they're the ones that confiscated all those photos. You're going to try to tell me they only have 700 documents? That's a joke. Oh, these guys are so funny. They think we're stupid.
Well,
they think you're all stupid. They think you're all stupid, that you can't go back and put the pieces together, that there were hundreds of thousands of photos that were taken of the Nazi ships over Los Angeles in 1942. We're all stupid, right?
Well, that's back when you had somebody develop it. And although there were some people that had the ability to develop it.
The CIA confiscated every single photograph.
How did they
There's
find
a huge giant undertaking to confiscate 100,000 photographs.
How did they find
films, 8mm films, 16mm films. I mean, a lot of people took photos of the event. Those ships stood above the harbor for 2 days. That ship.
How did they find everybody if some people were able to develop their own
Because
film?
the aliens tell them. They said, this person, because they're surveillance. They have absolute surveillance. The CIA told me, we see everything, we hear everything, and they have ever since the beginning. But it was the aliens that gave them the information. The aliens said, that person has a photograph, that person has a photograph, that person has a photograph. And then the CIA just went knocking on their door and said, you got to give them up. You have to give them up.
Okay, because that was beyond the humans' capability back in those days. So you're saying
right.
The extraterrestrials
work with the CIA to confiscate all those photographs. That's correct.
And what was the reason they did that for? Why? Why did
remember
they go to that?
Remember the agreement was any kind of disclosure has to be removed. Nothing is authorized unless we authorize it. Everything has to be
why were they doing it then? Why were
disclosure? They don't want people to know about them. Why don't they want you to know about them? I don't know. I mean, come on, they're farming you and for slavery purposes. They don't want you to know that. They want you to believe. Because because when the Earth was supposed to be distressed to the point where you were willing to go to other planets, that was part of that scam. You weren't going to buy into that scam if you knew about them beforehand.
Why were they revealing themselves that there was a battle in the first place? Why
that was the Nazi ship. That was the Nazis. That was the Nazis. It was not the aliens. That was a Nazi ship.
Why didn't they blame it on the Nazis? Say this was Nazis. What was that?
It was a Nazi ship over Los Angeles in February 1942. The Battle of Los Angeles is a Nazi ship that was sitting over the harbor. So what's your question?
Why did they give a damn if it was a Nazi ship? Why did they care? They can just say it was the Nazis. Why did they care if
they don't want anybody to know about? They didn't want anybody to know about warp technology or energy shields or any of the technology. They didn't want anybody to know about that.
Okay. So the Nazis weren't behaving, so they just wanted to get it back because the Nazis were not supposed to be.
Well, the Nazis were trying to get the United States to surrender at that time, which we didn't do. That was right before that was right after the invasion by Japan, and the Nazis said, "Okay, surrender. You're gonna lose anyway," and we didn't.
Okay, now we went through that whole article. Is there anything else you want to say about the article by the general? No, it's okay. We covered a lot. I can't think of anything right now. Okay.
Well, the idea is that go back again and repeat that this is authorized disclosure. He's not a whistleblower. This is very unique. You haven't seen this level of disclosure before. But he's also recruiting. They're always recruiting. The white hats are always recruiting. Anyway, it also reveals that it does prove, to me it proves, that the outer barrier is real. because we wouldn't be doing this kind of disclosure and recruiting in this manner if the outer barrier wasn't there, if it wasn't reality. Wouldn't be doing that. So, see, what he's saying is that we can defeat them now, but he's not telling you why.
Okay.
We know it's authorized because we're alive.
It's authorized because we're alive.
And I can speak to you now. The ICC is saying, hey, we can start talking to you now because they're surrounded and they can't touch us because they can't get in. They can't get into the outer barrier. This is proof of the outer barrier, that it's real.
Let's talk about how you get your information without revealing names. How is it you can bring us all this information? You have this background and awareness.
I can give you the name of the CIA general that was my controller from 96 on to end of 2013. Yeah, end of 2013, 96 to 2013. Bronco Dan, CIA general, 2-star, and then eventually became a 3-star. And he was my controller. He basically pulled me in as a CIA asset. I was actually told that I was going to be executed if I didn't. And I kind of laughed at him. I said, you know who I am, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, we know. And they actually told me that I'd probably get killed if I made that threat. And I said, well, yeah, I had a passing thought. I said, but I always wanted to work for the CIA, so we're going to see where this goes. I'll be your asset. I'll work for you. So I did paralegal work for them. I did legal cases for them. But over the years, he disclosed a lot of information to me and eventually told me that the reason he was doing that is because he's a white hat. One of the people, one of the high commanding officers throughout the United States that opposes the agreements with the aliens and opposes the Draco. They want to figure out.
He's a white hat because he opposes.
Call them white hats because they're Texans. I asked him why white hats. He said because they're all most of us are a bunch of Texans. Like Reagan, he's a white hat.
But okay? Explain the difference.
The big
between
tall white hats are an old movie thing. The white hats and the black hats in the movies, the old Western movies.
Right.
He told me that's where it came from. That's where the term came from.
Right.
They picked it out of the movies. And because the original generals who had formed this group, they were Texas officers, Texas generals.
So who are the white hats now? Because everybody's claiming I'm a white hat. Because
no. You would know. You have to be in the program. You're not in the program anymore. In the actual secret space program, is to be inside of it, performing functions inside of the program to be a white hat. And you have to be a brigadier or above. That's just how they. The QAnon people are saying that Trump is a white hat, but he's not a white hat. He's not in the program. No, he's not inside of the program. He wants to be a white hat, but he's not. He was never actually inside the program. He was right in, but he's not one of the members of the program performing functions for the ICC. That's not a white hat is someone inside the program, not outside. Trump was always an outsider.
So
he's still an outsider. He doesn't perform any functions for the ICC,
right?
And he never did during his presidency.
Do all these presidents get briefed in some way about the extraterrestrial presence?
They all get briefed, and they all want to disclose at the time they're told. They're warned not to, or they'll be killed, and they are. And they kill presidents.
They kill presidents, and then what if they?
Yeah.
My theory is that Trump was going to get another term, but then he did this, and so they said, nope, we're going to put Biden.
Well, Trump was aligning himself with the white hats and using his power at their direction, and that is why he got thrown out of office.
Okay, so that's what I got.
Biden serves the ICC. He does whatever they say, and he's never done anything else but exactly what he was told by them.
Well,
Trump found out who the white hats were, and went to them and said, "How can I help you?" And that was it. So he's out. He was nixed out. You're gone. Bye.
Well, I think some of them don't want to climb up on that cross. They're going to want to sacrifice because they've seen all these other people before get killed or Reagan got Alzheimer's. I mean, there's all kinds of things they can do to you. You know, he spent 10 years alive, but he was pretty low functioning, so that might have been.
Well,
like
you don't remember. Trump actually avoided 7 attempts on his life before he became president, and these attempts were made. I forgot who he said. He actually described this in detail. Who did that? I forgot who it was. It was
yeah,
a specific. It was an ICC member. They attempted to assassinate him 7 different times. This is before he ran for president. And then, I remember it was because he purchased a property in New York from one of the ICC members, and that ICC member ordered his execution. It's a very interesting story, but all true. And so he thought, he really objected that, and so he thought, well, if I have political power, I can avoid future attempts on my life and my children's life. And he did by making himself very public. He did accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. He protected his family. But then he also wanted to work for the White Hats. In the second, he was starting to gain more power with the White Hats, and he made agreements with the White Hats. And Xi Jinping, he also made agreements with Xi Jinping, also secret agreements with him, because it was told to me by my Chinese contacts, again, to overthrow the Draco, they're still here. So he wanted to do that, and then the ICC nixed him out. Well, you can't be president anymore. Bye-bye.
Right. So what about the story that Donald Trump's uncle, what was it?
His uncle gave him $1 million to start his business career out with?
No. Got Tesla's time travel machine, and then that's why there's those 2 books from the late 1890s by Baron Trump. So apparently Baron Trump gets the time travel machine. He goes back in time. These 2 books have very accurate descriptions about Trump winning the presidency. Everybody marching down in New York City. When he won back it's outlined in his 1890s book about Baron Trump, the time traveler, and then it came true. So there's 2 books, and apparently Tesla gave Trump Senior, the uncle got the Tesla technology because he was an MIT professor, and he was able to reverse engineer, look at the information and interpret it, because he was a physicist and brilliant, and so he understood about the time travel technology, and he didn't give it to the government, and he took it and he apparently developed it himself because he had enough money to do so. And then when he was dying, he said to Donald, "This is yours." There's about 24 YouTubes on it. Anybody can go to YouTube if they haven't pulled them and just look at the story about the adventures of Baron Trump, who is young Baron. And anyway, what do you think about that? Have you heard about that?
I didn't hear any details. Give me more detail. I just heard of that. I didn't really follow any of the details. Time travel is very restricted, so it's highly unlikely that occurred. But I'd have to look more into it. I do know there was a great time deviation that was done by the United States military that changed the outcome of the war, and that's a time deviation that we somehow or other they avoided detection and did it anyway. That one I know about. So I don't know about this particular time deviation, but all time deviations, you get sanctioned for it. The sanction is that you have to fix it, or you have to participate in fixing it, making it go back to the original timeline. For Trump to be told that he was going to be president only encouraged him to go and try. So what? So right. he became what was supposed to happen, but nothing was said about a second term.
Well, there were these time travelers that were coming back and predicting that there was like 20 of them. They made all these videos and they said, "Oh, Trump's going to get it." Da, da, da. But now we've not heard from them. And then some people saying, "Well, yeah, he's going to do a coup. That's how he's going to get it." Anyway, we still have 8 days to see what's going to happen here when we make it to the inauguration. But I want to stick with time travel. So then there's the Montauk program. There's the Vatican has a time machine, or a chronovisor they can see. So there's all kinds
right,
of time
the looking glass.
technology.
Looking glass is a real device. But again, time travel and time seeing is strictly regulated. You can't change time. You can look and verify certain things, but you're not allowed to go make changes. You can see it and make changes. It's okay to see that Trump's going to become president, but you can't change him becoming president.
But
and he became president because the CIA told me we put him into the presidency, exactly the way Bronco told me that they rigged all these other elections. They put him there. They said, we're going to put him there. And I said, okay. They put him there because he was weak and a nobody. And Hillary was going to disclose. That's why they put him there. That simple.
Well, George Green knew that Carter was going to be president because that group, which included Ted Kennedy, told him in the 70s or the 60s. Anyway, heading up to it, that they wanted him to work. They wanted George to work for the next president. And he said, "Who's that?" And they said, "Jimmy Carter." And he says, "Well, is he I'm a Republican." No, he's a Democrat. He goes, "I'm not working for any Democrat." Anyway, so they already knew, and then of course that came true. And then other people have been told, like apparently Bush 1 and Bush 2 were told they were going to be presidents. Clinton was told he's going to be president, and so somewhere somebody's making these decisions and informing. Obama knew he's going to be president way before, so they're informing him that you're a future president.
The ICC decides all the elections. The ICC decides all of the elections. When Bronco was rigging, when he was in command of rigging all the major Democratic elections, there was someone else in charge of rigging all the. Bronco was my controller from '96 to 2014, and when he told me, he told me precisely how they did it when there was paper. They would simply switch the ballot boxes. The police officers would switch the ballot boxes. Police officers who were driving the ballot boxes to the counting where they would be counted, they merely switched, those officers switched the boxes, and the CIA made sure those officers switched the boxes of the ballots. Right. So they already had ballot boxes to replace the ballot boxes that were real. And that's how they did it when it was done in paper. And so they rig every single election. It goes exactly the way the ICC wants that person in office to be. And only allow people who are going to do exactly what they're told to do when they're told to do it.
Well, we don't know.
And
what
Trump went along with that.
Paper.
Trump went along with that because he was trying to escape from being assassinated by one of the ICC members. So he went along with it. He said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do whatever you need."
What about the story that Trump was recruited in the 80s by Putin because he'd gone bankrupt and nobody was bailing him out, and he went over and started traveling over to see Putin. It's outlined in this documentary called Active Measures, and so Putin was pissed off at the United States because the United States, of course, broke them down into the different set of USSR, different countries now. They're no longer.
Yeah, Bronco told me specifically how the ICC did that. He was involved. He was there. He told me exactly how they did it.
How did they do that?
Oh, the final. He gave me lots of details, but he was actually all the generals were I don't know if it was Putin at the time, but he said all the generals were getting together and they were thinking about, they were talking about doing war against the United States. I forgot what year it was. I think it was 98 that he told me this. I forgot what year he was saying this happened, but the breakup, he said he was in the room with the generals and he had a mouse in a cage. And he put the mouse on the table and he told all the generals, he said, "Well, that's all very nice, but you're not going to do that." And they said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I can execute any one of you at this very moment." And they laughed, and he said, "Well, you see the mouse that's in the cage on the table?" And they said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, okay, well, in 10 seconds from now, it's going to die, and you're going to watch it die." And that's he told me it was an ultrasonic beam, but I don't care what kind of beam it was. It was they killed the mouse from a satellite or a ship, actually, a cloaked ship. Eventually, I found out it was a cloak ship, and they killed the mouse, and the whole room went quiet. And he said, "So, is there anybody that doesn't believe that I can kill any one of you at will?" And he said, "If there's anyone that doesn't believe that I can kill any one of you at will, the same way they just killed that mouse, raise your hand." And nobody raised their hand. And that was the end.
That was the end. Well, apparently the collapse of the Soviet Union was in December 25th, 1991. The Soviet flag flew over the Kremlin in Moscow for the last
So
time.
he got to actually be the person that performed the function for the ICC to end the Soviet Union. He was the one that was personally responsible for doing that. He was in command. Bronco came from the Soviet Union until the age of 14. Then he escaped his father and him and his family escaped to the United States because his father was a Christian minister, and then he got discovered, and they were going to execute him and his family, and so they all got secreted out of the country, and then Bronco then he went to Texas schools from the age of 14, played for Texas A&M when they won the Nationals, and then in 74 he got picked up by the Cowboys after they won the Nationals for football. We're talking about football. He was a great football player. And then in 74 and 75 he played for the Cowboys, and he became the first barefoot kicker to kick over 3 field goals in a single game over 60 yards each. And then he got picked up by the CIA. And then so from 75 till he died, I guess, in 16, he worked for the CIA. And he told me a lot about his missions in the Soviet Union.
So
I know the story because I heard it from the people who actually did it.
Right. Okay. Then let me finish that. So then apparently Trump went over and did like that Miss Universe, and he kept negotiating. What they gave him was a money laundering deal.
Trump went to the Soviet Union because he was being attacked by a powerful ICC, 7 attempts on his life by the ICC. So he went to the Soviet Union for protection.
So that's when
he made his agreements. That's when he made his original agreements with Putin, was to protect him and his fammy.
But also
from the ICC.
They taught him how to money launder all through all of his hotels and his golf courses.
Yeah. They helped him with a lot of stuff, and they still help him with a lot of stuff. But you have to understand, you keep thinking Russia and China are the enemy, and they're not. They're actually our friends. They're the real. They're the alliance. They're the alliance that wants to defeat the Draco, not the ICC. The
I
ICC.
understand that we have.
Okay. So he made the right move.
On a higher level, but we also have competition. So it's not like, there's still competition. There's alliance.
And it was Reagan that wanted to teach China business so they could become powerful in the alliance to take over the Draco. It's the White Hats. These are the White Hats that sent Trump over to Putin. The White Hats sent him over there because he asked some high-ranking general, "How can I protect myself from these people that are trying 7 attempts on my life?" And he says, "You're going to have to go over to the Soviet Union because they have spies here that can protect you."
So we're getting almost at the end here. So you were saying that your friend only fixed the Democratic elections. Who did the Republican
that
elections?
person was responsible for fixing the Democratic election. There was another CIA agent that was responsible for fixing all the Republican elections. I don't know who that general is.
To go back and forth because it doesn't seem we stay longer. Like every 8 years, it kind of goes back and forth. Now it's 4. But that's
intended. It's intended to make the public think that it's a 50-50 so that any decision comes out, you don't know for sure that it's an ICC decision. They keep this 50-50 balance, Democrats barely holding on to 50%, Republicans barely holding on to 50%. They do this everywhere because it's the way to fool the public into thinking that, any decision that came out, it's just a toss of the coin. But it's not. It's just a way of fooling you all, not seeing who's really making the decisions.
So basically our vote is it's predetermined who's going to be the current puppet controlled by the ICC, and it goes back and forth to control the population, to keep us dummied down and enslaved So is there ever going to be an end to this, or are we just doomed to be slaves the entire time we're alive? Do we escape this system when we die?
Well, yeah, because we have the outer barrier around the solar system. We have an opportunity. They're expecting us to escape, but it takes very advanced physicists to come up with the technology to defeat the Draco in our solar system. The remaining Draco in our solar system, we need advanced physicists, and that's why all these people are recruiting now. TSA, Haim Eshed, McCandless, they're all recruiters. Almost everybody you're coming in contact in the physics world, they're recruiters. They're recruiting for the White Hats to develop the technology to defeat the Draco.
Okay, well, we're going to have to keep figuring that one out.
Is this the end of the show? I thought it was a 2-hour show. I don't understand.
Well, we're independent now. We don't have to go 2 hours. What else would you like to cover? I might have to.
No, I'm good. I just didn't understand. First off, I missed the break in between, but that's okay. And
no, we're no longer with Revolution Radio. I don't want to be with Revolution Radio after the coup. So anyway, I'm not going to go into that here, but we're not with Revolution Radio. So we're doing this independently.
Yeah, see, anything that happens in politics is of no consequence whatsoever. The real people in power are the board holders, the boards of directors, and the major stockholders of all of the U.S. aerospace companies. That's the ICC. And you have no way of controlling or influencing or doing anything to them, no matter who you elect.
So what's the end game? We're just here spinning our wheels.
No, we have to develop technology, which means we need all the universities to get on board with the higher technology, start teaching the higher technology, because the geniuses that are going to defeat the Draco are young kids. So my grandchildren. We have to have, but we need them all. We need a lot more geniuses working on the problem. I'm working on the problem, and I think I can solve it, but I might not be able to in my lifetime. So I want to also teach young kids the higher technology that want to defeat the Draco. Are you still there?
So how are you doing that? No, how are you doing that?
Well, I'm not doing it yet. I'll get there. I'm not teaching yet. I've been invited to teach in China, but, we'll see. The United States won't let me leave, but we'll see. Maybe the White Hats will. And then I can teach a bunch of Chinese physicists, young physicists. I'd rather teach in the United States, but we'll see. It is to be determined. Is there any way
you can influence that outcome of where you get to teach? Do you have any influence whatsoever?
No, I don't know. The White Hats are going to determine that. I just don't know. It's just like they brought me in to teach China originally. They never briefed me beforehand. I didn't know it was happening until it happened. And they're going to do it the same way. I'm not going to know until it happens. But I do know that I will be teaching the young genius physicist on how to defeat the Draco. I do know that. Because I'm the fifth person ever discovered to ever originally derive these the top four forces. That's how I know that I will be.
How can we find these kids? How can we sort and find these kids that have the aptitude?
They find them for me, and they bring them for me. The Chinese have told me that they have a whole bunch of kids just waiting to be taught by me, but I won't know it till it happens. Like I said, it'll be a surprise, just exactly like it was a surprise to me in December '85 when they brought the finance minister in front of me. And I knew right away. I looked at the whole room. They were all CIA and FBI agents. I looked at the whole room and I laughed. I looked at everyone and said, "So you all knew this was going to happen, and none of you told me." Yeah, that was fun.
Well, these kids could come from anywhere. It doesn't mean a certain race or a certain location. These geniuses, these ultra geniuses, could be born in.
Yeah. They may very well I don't know. It might be a secret underground base where they bring them all for me to teach. I don't know. Like I said, they don't inform me beforehand. They just pop it on me when the time comes, and then I look around the room and I know exactly what's going on. I know it's going to happen. I just don't know when or where.
Okay. What else do you want to cover in this show? What
that's it. You guys are asking all good questions. Lots of good questions. You're all. You wondered. I tell you, Bronco told me. You know, he was responsible for rigging all the elections to the Democrats, and so I stopped voting. That was in '98. I stopped voting, and then the next year, he said to me, he said, "Well, my commanding officers are really concerned you're not voting." He said, "Why aren't you voting?" And I said, "Well, why?" I said, "Did you lie to me about rigging the election?" He said, "No, we rigged the elections." And he said, "Well, what for? What do I need to vote for? Am I going to waste my time participating in a rigged system?" I said, and I haven't voted since. I don't participate in the elections. I don't watch any of the elections. I don't watch any of that stuff. What for? It's a waste of my time. And your question was, is that my suggestion to everybody else? Not unless enough of you do it. A handful of you, that's not going to mean anything. It would have to be a large percentage of the population that would have to abstain, I call it abstaining, from voting to mean anything. One person, I just stopped voting because I don't want to waste my time. Anyway, got any questions?
Let me think 1 second here. Hold on. Let me get back to my notes.
Get your notes out?
Okay, hold on.
Oh, you were asking about that Japanese woman. You really want to know about that Japanese woman on the photo?
Yeah, you had a nanny.
Did you post that photo? She was more than a nanny. She was the one that walked us through the portal every night to the base so that we'd be trained, and then she trained us in basics of sword fighting. The Japanese always train the women equally with the men, and recently when the Japanese were invited to in the Olympics by the Olympic Committee to add kendo to the Olympics, they refused because they wouldn't allow women to compete with the men. So the original, one of our most important instructors was that woman. She taught us the original moves, the basics of sword fighting, samurai sword fighting.
Explain.
So the women are very important. They were very important in the secret space program. They were very, very important. From the very beginning, they were very important in the secret space program.
So what about this portal? You mentioned a portal. I'm going to get her picture.
Oh, yeah. Well, every night, the nanny would pick us up and walk us through the portal onto the base. It's a transporter from our room into the base so we could be trained in sword fighting on the base. Underground base in Japan, and I showed you photos of the underground base. That's where they portaled us to. We were on the other side of the island. We were near Tokyo, Tachikawa. We had a house in Tachikawa, and that's where we would portal from Tachikawa all the way to the other side in the underground base, which is 24 floors below the ground, the surface, which was at the beach. And the reason it was at the beach is because they had an underground submarine base there too.
So what do you mean by portaled? What happened?
Basically it's just like a flushing light, the circular light that appears in the room, and then you're supposed to walk through it. It's like a hole. It's a wormhole, actually, but you're supposed to walk through it, and it's white. And it moves like water. It's very much like that water fountain that they trained us with, but it wasn't shooting up. It was simply a big circle that appeared in the room, and you're supposed to walk through it. And then when you walk through it, well, we didn't walk through it when we were babies. When we were 2 and 3 years old, we were carried through it by that person, that girl. And she brought us through the portal onto the base. And then you appear in the base, and then you get a bunch of doctors meet you there and give you shots and stuff, and then you go into the training facilities because you have to have your memories unsuppressed at that moment. We're able to unsuppress and suppress memories every day, which is very interesting.
Oh wow!
It's like Men in Black, that little flasher thing, the Men in Black, and then your memories are gone, and then it would flash it again, and your memories are there. It was that simple. That simple to suppress and unsuppress memory. It's that easy to suppress and unsuppress memories. That is the device that was used. That device they use in Men in Black. And you see how they use it to suppress. They use it to suppress and unsuppress memories.
Interesting. And does that do any harm to your mind? getting
No.
suppressed and unsuppressed?
Nope.
No
Nope.
side effects.
This is technology that was developed over millions of years by aliens. No, it doesn't harm you.
Okay.
This isn't technology that was just invented a few years ago. This is millions of years old technology.
And
So of course it was well developed and fine tuned. And remember, these are the people that had that technology. They're the ones that genetically engineered us. So that technology, they already had the technology for our specific gene. For our specific our specific humanity. Yeah, the technology was designed specifically for us over those 250,000 years. So yeah, no problem, easy. And no harm, doesn't harm you. Now, it is very interesting to note, every month we were driven physically to the base. That's why I have those pictures and all that stuff. We were actually driven physically. Right, I remember physically walking down 24 stairs, brought us physically into the base because apparently the portal system does disturb the examination. So the doctors wanted to examine us every month without the contamination of the portal. So apparently the portal leaves some kind of residue that disturbs medical analysis. That's why we were actually physically walked into the base, driven from one side of the island. It took like 4 hours in a 1953 Chevy, or was it 47 Chevy? I forgot. I have pictures of the old Chevy too, that my father would drive us from Tachikawa onto the opposite side of the island. It took all morning to get there, and then we had to walk down 24 floors. I remember being a little kid walking down 24 floors of steel. Said, "Dad, don't touch the rails! Don't touch the rails! They're electrified. Don't touch them." Yeah.
Wow.
On a steel staircase.
Why did they electrify the rails? What if you were falling? You'd have to grab the rails.
Well, because they didn't want any unauthorized personnel to come to somehow or other get themselves into the door and then down the stairs. So they electrified the rails. They had other things too. They had gas. They had different ways of keeping people from going down the staircase. Remember that there was at that time they didn't transport. Remember they didn't want to transport us into the base because they didn't want us to have the residue from the transporter. So we had to physically walk down the staircase. But they also didn't want any unauthorized personnel to use that access to the base. So they had different ways, and he said, "Don't touch the rails; they're electrified."
Oh, jeez. Wow, what an adventure.
And then we had rubber shoes on. They actually put those rubber boots on. You can actually, if you look at the photo, you can see we have those white rubber boots on. Those boots were put on to us that morning specifically to walk down that staircase, the metal staircase. Then don't touch the rails.
So, how long was this woman your nanny? When were you done with that?
Until we could walk through the portal by ourselves. And she taught us basics, but our major instructors were men and some women also. There were some women that taught us more than the basics, and then there were men that these are senseis. I don't know if they're called instructors. The highest level kendo sword fighting instructors in Japan were the ones that were recruited to teach us. We had one I remember for sure, who was the key instructor, but there were probably about 8 of them. 2 or 3 of them were women. These are the most accomplished sword fighters in Japan during the time.
Now, did you go to school in the United States? Did you eventually go to regular
Oh,
school
eventually,
in the United States?
We left Japan 4 years later, and then at the age of 6 and 7, I was also being trained in the United States, but again on U.S. military bases where the secret space program base was underneath. Seymour Johnson was one of the major bases that I was trained on. And there was a base in that's the farm. Those pictures of the farm, I don't know where that was exactly. I think it was in Idaho. At one of those secret, right off one of the secret military bases there. Probably, I forgot what bases are in Idaho. Yeah,
well, you were just a kid.
Right.
How old were you when you were?
You see me when I was riding bulls. 6 years old, riding bulls.
And the purpose
And that
of
tractor,
riding
when the tractor moved, we were actually supposed to grab onto the tire to get up onto the tractor. They had all kinds of things they made us do with the tractor, not just drive it. Like you would, while the tractor was moving, you would grab onto the knobs of the wheel, and it would pull you up to the top. So we were being trained to deal with big robots and big animals.
Right, because animals are not always small. I see what's going on with the nanny picture. It's a PDF file. I'm having.
You see her shoulders? You see how broad her shoulders are? You know how beefy she is?
I'm looking at it now.
That's the build of a very strong sword fighter. You don't see how beefy she is? How big the shoulders? And powerful she is?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a lot of revealing information from those photos.
Right. And then you had one with the Japanese fellow.
The instructors,
the equipment.
There was a Geronimo 16. You're talking about Geronimo 16, the Apaches.
No, I'm talking about the one where you're little and you're with that piece of machine, and I guess you're sitting. I have to pull that up. I'm trying to get the.
Oh, it's a little rail car, and that rail car would run you throughout the base. 80 miles an hour. But the geneticist is the geneticist who engineered me with the Grays. The Japanese geneticist who engineered me. He's illustrating the three people he engineered, but the document that's sitting on my brother's lap, that's the patent. That he's very proud of us, and that he has this patent for us. And, yeah.
So
that's on the base. That's actually in the base in Japan, 24 floors below the ground.
So how did that feel to be genetically engineered? Did you grow up feeling different? Did you have awareness that you were?
I didn't say that again.
How did that feel? being genetically
engineered? I didn't know any of this stuff. Remember, my memories were suppressed. My memories were suppressed. I didn't realize any of this stuff until after 2014. Some of the memories started coming back. And then I looked in all the photos and go, oh, my God, the evidence is right there. So I didn't realize anything until 2014. So I didn't know any of that. Were you like more physically fit than the kids at your school? Because you went to a regular school, right? Yeah, I was always a top athlete in any athletic endeavor. Yeah, they wanted me to engage in athletics in the daytime as well. So they always had us engaging in athletic activities. Football, I was really good at football too. But anyway, I really got into water polo. That was the Germans really loved the water polo players, and that was where they liked training us during the days. And water polo players we trained quite a bit. We trained from 4:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And then we went to school. This is high school. This is La Puente High School. 4:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And then after school, 2:30 to 5:30. Every day, 6 days a week. Your abilities weren't really beyond normal, right? You could be you weren't kicking a football across the field, right? You could just be. No, I wasn't kicking. I was actually on the line. I was a lineman. That was the position I played. So you weren't doing anything like flubber where you're bouncing. They wouldn't let me play any of the backfield positions, so I never threw the ball or kicked the ball. They were very careful not to illustrate the capabilities too much. Yeah, very careful. That's why I was wondering how they and how they don't let you do they don't let you too much. But then a lot of us super soldiers were water polo players, and nobody knew it. See, so we were competing against other super soldiers in the program as water polo players. Wait, Dan, we have 10 seconds and the show's over. Okay, so we're out of time. Hey, that was great. That went fast. So we'll have you back in another month or so. But thank you for coming. Yes. We covered a lot of ground. So anything else you want to say? The music's going to come on any second now. Oh, here it comes. I got to get going. Okay. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, listeners. Much love and blessings and aloha. Take care. Bye-bye.